Sometimes your heart dims in complete silence. No prayer spoken, no tear yet fallen. Yet a hidden mercy is already racing toward you. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah responds to the trembling of the soul long before the mind understands its own weakness. In the unseen world, help is set in motion the moment your strength begins to fade. This is the secret of a Lord who protects you before danger forms, who comforts you before sorrow arrives, and who saves you long before you realize you're slipping. The heart often whispers its fatigue long before the tongue finds the strength to speak, and in that hidden trembling, a divine movement begins. Allah approaches the servant not through roads the mind recognizes, but through pathways only the soul can feel. There is a nearness that enters before the storm arrives, a breath of mercy that touches the chest before the pain forms. In this sacred moment, the seeker doesn't call yet, the response is already unfolding. Such is the subtle compassion wrapped in silence, preparing the heart for what it has not yet faced. There are moments when the soul feels suspended between strength and collapse, unsure of which way it will fall. In that fragile interval, Allah's unseen care surrounds the heart like a cloak gently lowered over shivering shoulders. Before weakness becomes visible, the most merciful becomes present. Ibn Arabi teaches that divine support is not a reaction, but an eternal movement, flowing before your need appears. What seems like coincidence is a pre-written mercy, arriving perfectly on time. Even the smallest easing of pain is a sign of him drawing near. Often the heart bends quietly, without dramatic tears, without spoken prayers, yet something begins to soothe it from within. This is not self-healing. This is a response initiated from the heavens before your distress became clear to you. It is as though Allah places a cushion beneath your spirit before it collapses, preventing a fall you never realized was coming. The world may remain unchanged around you, yet the weight begins to shift subtly inside. This is how mercy works, silently, precisely, lovingly. There is a divine rhythm in the unseen, a timing that answers the soul's fatigue before it becomes unbearable. Allah does not wait for the servant to crumble. His kindness meets you in the space just before breaking. Ibn Arabi reveals that this is the moment when divine closeness becomes most hidden, yet most intense. The heart feels a slight softening, an unexpected calm, a breath of relief with no clear source. This is the nearness that arrives before your weakness becomes visible even to yourself. Sometimes the signs are so gentle you overlook them. A sudden ease, a small clarity, a soft reassurance that appears without invitation. These are not accidents, but traces of a mercy that preceded your pain. When the divine moves toward you, he does so with a precision that escapes the understanding of the mind. Your fears begin to loosen, not because you fought them, but because help entered silently. Ibn Arabi calls this the secret companionship that never separates from the seeker. In the unseen world, your fatigue is noticed long before you give it language. Every trembling of your inner world is known before it reaches your heart's surface. Allah responds to these tremors with an embrace that arrives in forms you do not immediately recognize. It may come as strength, or patience, or the sudden ability to take one more step. This intervention is the mercy that anticipates you, surrounding you before your collapse can take place. The moment before breaking is a sacred threshold, a quiet place where divine help gathers. Your hands may not be raised in prayer, yet your soul sends signals woven from its deepest vulnerabilities. Allah intercepts these silent messages and begins assisting you before they even mature into fear. Ibn Arabi describes this as the meeting point between divine compassion and human fragility. In this meeting, the servant is never alone, even when unaware of the help unfolding around them. When your heart feels heavy without reason, consider that you may be standing in the shadow of a mercy descending. The world may appear unchanged, yet something within you receives support in ways you cannot articulate. This is Allah's way of protecting the soul before harm approaches. The divine movement is not loud. It does not announce itself. It simply enters and becomes the strength you discover unexpectedly. There are moments when your mind becomes clouded, yet somewhere deeper, a quiet reassurance emerges. This reassurance is not self-generated. It is a whisper from the unseen, calming what has not yet erupted. Ibn Arabi reminds us that Allah's nearness precedes our desperation. Long before tears form, long before fears sharpen, a protective force wraps around the heart. You may not feel the embrace, but you feel the stability it creates. Sometimes life feels as though it is narrowing, leaving you unsure of how to move. Yet just as the pressure begins to build, relief flows from a direction you never expected. This is not coincidence, but divine orchestration, a rescue prepared before your panic formed. Allah moves toward you in the moments you are too tired to approach Him. He lifts the burdens that you had no energy to describe, easing the heart from within. The soul rarely understands its own vulnerability until after it has passed, but Allah sees it in its earliest stages. Before your strength wavers, before confusion grows, help begins to shape itself around your path. Ibn Arabi reveals that this mercy is older than your fear, older than your situation, and older than your struggle. You walk into support that was waiting for you long before your difficulty appeared. This is divine protection in its purest form. When hope dims softly, Allah rekindles it without waiting for your plea. A new possibility appears, a new clarity forms, a door opens where you saw none. You may attribute this to chance, but the soul knows it is divine timing. This is the answer sent before the question existed. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah's care is proactive, not reactive, reaching the servant in the moment, just before despair grows roots. The heart feels as though it is wandering, yet a peace descends that makes direction unnecessary. This peace is the trace of divine nearness, arriving before your confusion matures into fear. Allah steadies you before you stumble, strengthens you before you weaken, and guides you before you become lost. This preemptive grace reflects the boundless compassion that surrounds the believer. You are supported long before you understand why. Even when you think nothing is moving in your favor, hidden alignments begin forming around your steps. These alignments are interventions designed by a Lord who anticipates your needs before you voice them. Ibn Arabi tells us that the unseen world is always working to preserve the soul. When you feel a sudden ease, it is not random, it is the echo of divine involvement. Allah's movement toward you begins long before you sense it. There are burdens you did not have to carry because Allah removed them before they reached you. These unseen rescues are among the greatest signs of divine love. Though you never witnessed the danger, you received the safety. Ibn Arabi states that the soul is often protected from what it never even knew existed. The mercy that surrounds you is larger than your awareness, safeguarding your heart before it even senses harm. Often the heart reaches its lowest point without collapsing, and you wonder why. The reason is simple. Allah strengthened you before weakness took over. A calmness appears, not from logic, but from divine generosity. This strength is not earned, it is gifted. Ibn Arabi describes it as a light placed inside the soul to prevent it from shattering. You endure because you were supported before you faltered. In times of silence, when prayers feel distant, help still flows quietly, persistently, lovingly. Allah does not require your words to send His care. He responds to the language of your soul, which speaks even when your tongue is still. Ibn Arabi teaches that this inner communication is constant, and divine compassion never ignores it. The help you receive is often the answer to a plea you did not realize you made. The nearness of Allah becomes clearest when you look back and see how many times you were rescued without awareness. Every escape, every moment of unexpected relief, every breath that became easier, these were answers sent before your call. The divine movement toward you is continuous. Ibn Arabi reminds us that the most merciful is closest, not when we call, but when we need him without knowing it. Your survival is proof of a care far older than your pain. There is a subtle beauty in realizing that your heart was held long before it broke. The divine support that reached you did not wait for your strength to fail. It arrived to ensure you did not collapse. This is not merely kindness, it is divine loyalty. Allah stays with the servant in the unspoken places, the unseen struggles, the silent storms. Ibn Arabi says that true nearness appears before suffering, not after. When the soul finally understands that Allah moved toward it before it even noticed its own fragility, a deeper trust awakens. You begin to see life differently. Every delay, every shift, every protection becomes a sign of his intimate involvement. The heart softens, knowing it was never abandoned. Ibn Arabi teaches that the one who witnesses this truth becomes anchored in divine love. And in this anchoring, the fear of breaking disappears. Even in your darkest moments, Allah was already preparing the light that would lift you. That light arrived in ways you never predicted, through paths you never imagined. This is the divine promise unfolding, that help reaches the servant before the servant reaches desperation. Ibn Arabi calls this the secret mercy that travels faster than sorrow. It is the proof that your Lord is always one step closer than your struggle. There are moments when your heart feels as though it is moving through darkness, unsure of its direction, yet something gently steers it towards steadiness. This guidance does not announce itself, nor does it force its presence. It simply arranges a subtle shift that you only notice when calmness settles in. Ibn Arabi teaches that the unseen world touches the heart long before clarity appears. What feels like intuition is often a whisper of divine care. These hidden hands guide without noise, shaping your steps with quiet precision. Sometimes the heart drifts without purpose, and in that drifting, a silent protection rises around it. You may not hear it, but you feel the softened edges of your worry, the gentler tone of your thoughts, the unexpected peace in your breath. These moments are not self-created. They are signs of a guidance so delicate it leaves no trace except tranquility. Ibn Arabi describes this as a companionship that follows you through every inward motion. Your heart is never left to wander alone. Life often brings confusion that tightens around the mind, but beneath those knots, your heart senses an unseen direction pulling you away from despair. You may resist at first, unaware of the help working beneath your struggle, yet slowly the heaviness loosens, not from effort but from mercy. Allah guides the heart, not with force, but with gentle reorientation. Ibn Arabi reminds us that every shift toward peace is a divine hand adjusting the soul's trajectory. Even when your thoughts become loud and overwhelming, something quieter rises beneath them, a stillness that does not come from you. This stillness is a sign of the divine presence navigating your inner landscape, calming what your mind cannot touch. You may not understand how it arrives, but you recognize the strength it leaves behind. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah's guidance often operates beyond the reach of human awareness. The heart feels the results without witnessing the cause. There are days when you feel emotionally distant from everything, yet you find yourself protected from sinking too deeply. This is the mercy that holds you from within, keeping you afloat when your own strength is thin. The hidden hands guiding you work with tenderness, preventing your sorrow from overtaking your spirit. Ibn Arabi teaches that divine support often disguises itself as resilience. You endure because something greater than you is carrying your heart. In moments of loneliness, when the world feels dim, a quiet reassurance enters without knocking. It doesn't remove the challenge, but it softens the fear. This subtle comfort is the mark of guidance that arrives without being summoned. Ibn Arabi explains that Allah's nearness manifests in the spaces between thoughts, where the soul whispers truths the mind cannot form. These whispers are signs of the unseen hands lifting your heart towards steadiness. There are times when you walk away from something harmful without knowing why. Later, you realize it was protection disguised as instinct. The heart often receives warnings from realms the mind cannot perceive. These are the traces of divine intervention, shaping your decisions before harm reaches you. Ibn Arabi teaches that such movements are not randomness, but the unfolding of a hidden script designed for your well-being. Your heart obeys guidance it never heard. When your emotions swell beyond what you can articulate, a quiet force begins to gather around you, slowing your breath, steadying your thoughts. This is Allah's mercy arriving in forms too subtle for the senses. The heart adjusts gently, as though held by an unseen grip that promises safety. Ibn Arabi reveals that divine guidance rarely shouts. It appears as a silent transformation. You change because you are being guided inwardly. In times of inner conflict, when choices feel heavy and unclear, a sudden clarity emerges that feels both fragile and powerful. This clarity is not found, it is given. It flows into the heart like a soft light, illuminating what was previously hidden. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah opens paths within the soul long before the mind detects them. The hidden hands guiding you carve out understanding in places you thought were closed. Sometimes the heart becomes tired of its own thoughts, circling the same worries repeatedly. Yet, unexpectedly, the cycle breaks, replaced by a new perspective that lifts you gently forward. This shift is the mark of divine alignment, entering your inner world. Allah guides the heart by reshaping how it feels, not by forcing how it thinks. Ibn Arabi describes this as the subtle engineering of the soul. You take a new direction because mercy redesigned your inward compass. Even when you do not speak your needs aloud, the unseen realm listens to every silent tremor of your heart. Help begins to move toward you before your thoughts even settle into words. This assistance wraps around your emotions like light diffusing through darkness. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah's guidance operates in the depths where human language fails. Your heart is heard, even when your voice is quiet. You pause without knowing why, and that pause saves you from a path you were not meant to take. The hesitation is not weakness, it is guidance. The hidden hands shaping your steps create small delays that protect the soul from unseen consequences. Ibn Arabi explains that divine intervention often takes the form of gentle redirects. What you interpret as uncertainty is sometimes divine wisdom unfolding. When your heart carries grief silently, without sharing it with anyone, a compassion unknown to the world begins tending to it. You may not notice the care at first, but you feel its effects. Softer thoughts, a slightly lighter breath, a moment of unexpected strength. This is Allah's way of tending to wounds before they deepen. Ibn Arabi reveals that the soul is healed from places the mind does not visit. The hidden hands touch what words cannot reach. There are moments when you feel emptied, unable to continue, yet something inside refuses to let you collapse. This resilience is not born from personal will, it is a mercy stationed within the heart. Allah places strength in the soul before exhaustion consumes it. Ibn Arabi teaches that unseen support surrounds every believer, giving them endurance that exceeds their understanding. The hidden hands lift you from beneath your breaking point. Sometimes the heart moves toward people or places without logic, drawn by an unseen force. Later, you discover those choices protected or transformed you in ways you could not foresee. This magnetic pull is a whisper of divine guidance, steering you gently toward what your soul needs. Ibn Arabi explains that the heart travels along paths written for its growth. The hidden hands lead you to encounters meant for your elevation. In moments of uncertainty, when you fear making the wrong decision, a quiet confidence arises from nowhere. It steadies you, even if your situation remains unchanged. This inner certainty is a sign of divine companionship, embracing the soul. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah's guidance appears as internal alignment, long before it appears as external change. The hidden hands sculpt courage into the heart before it steps forward. When sadness becomes heavy, you may feel a sudden longing for Allah, an urge to turn, even if you do not fully know how. This longing itself is guidance. Ibn Arabi says, the desire to seek God is a sign that God is seeking you first. The hidden hands draw your heart toward Him gently, inviting you into safety before despair roots itself deeply. You are guided because you are loved. There are moments when life feels chaotic, but the heart remains strangely calm, as though anchored by something beyond the world. This calmness is not accidental. It is the result of unseen hands steadying your soul. Ibn Arabi teaches that divine guidance often shields the heart from turmoil, while the external world remains turbulent. What protects you is not your strength, but the one who strengthens you. Sometimes the heart takes a step forward without knowing why, and that step becomes the beginning of healing. You may believe it was your own decision, but the truth is softer and more sacred. Allah guided your heart toward relief before you understood your own need. Ibn Arabi reveals that the divine leads the soul by planting movements within it. The hidden hands shape the journey from the inside out. When you finally look back at all the moments you were steered away from pain, lifted in silence, or comforted without prayer, you begin to see the truth of divine nearness. The hidden hands guiding your heart were present in every quiet mercy, every unexpected strength, every gentle redirection. Ibn Arabi teaches that recognizing this is the beginning of deeper surrender. You are guided not because you call, but because Allah never leaves you unattended. Weakness often feels like failure, yet in the unseen realm, it becomes the very doorway through which divine compassion enters. The heart that trembles is not abandoned. It is noticed in a way the confident heart can never be. Ibn Arabi teaches that vulnerability softens the veil between the servant and the divine. Through this softening, mercy flows with a speed the mind cannot understand. This is the secret of a Lord who responds to fragility with overwhelming gentleness. A heart nearing exhaustion is met by a support that forms before it collapses. The soul bends under pressure, and in that bend, divine compassion wraps itself around the breaking point. This is not sympathy, but a pre-written care woven into the fabric of your existence. Ibn Arabi reveals that weakness is not a flaw, it is an invitation for a mercy already waiting to descend. The unseen world responds to you before despair reaches full depth. When strength fades, the divine draws nearer, filling the spaces where resilience once lived. What you interpret as vulnerability becomes the very magnet for divine nearness. Ibn Arabi describes this as a sacred exchange. The heart releases its illusions, and Allah replaces them with His support. Through this exchange, you are held up by a force that exceeds your own capacity. The mercy that arrives is precise, personal, and perfectly timed. A person standing at the edge of inner collapse discovers that mercy meets them exactly at that threshold. The world sees fragility, but Allah sees sincerity birthed from struggle. Ibn Arabi teaches that the soul's exposure is what awakens the deepest compassion from the divine. In this state, your weakness becomes a language understood only by Allah. What you cannot express is answered with a mercy tailored to your silent wounds. The heaviness that overtakes the heart becomes the ground where divine assistance plants its roots. Weakness opens a space that strength often conceals, making room for a help that cannot enter through pride. Ibn Arabi speaks of a mercy that rushes toward the servant precisely when self-reliance begins to crumble. What feels like breaking is often the moment when you are being remade from within. The unseen support reshapes your inner world with delicate care. Hidden within every trembling breath is an invitation for divine nearness. Allah responds not to perfection but to the raw truth of your limits. Ibn Arabi explains that the heart's surrender is the opening through which divine compassion flows most intensely. As weakness rises, the veil thins, allowing mercy to embrace you in ways the conscious mind cannot detect. This embrace strengthens the soul before it realizes strength has returned. A servant who reaches the end of their endurance discovers that divine wisdom has already prepared a safety beneath them. The unseen mercy activated by weakness does not merely assist, it anticipates. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah's compassion meets the believer before collapse turns into despair. This is why relief often emerges from places you never touched. The mercy arrives unannounced, yet leaves unmistakable traces of healing. When your inner world begins to dim, a light starts forming in the unseen realm, illuminating paths you believed were closed forever. The weakening of your spirit becomes the signal that summons this light. Ibn Arabi reminds us that weakness is never ignored by the divine. It is honored with gifts only those who struggle can experience. Through this luminous mercy, the heart rises again, steadier than before. A soul overwhelmed by its burden receives a mercy crafted precisely for its depth of pain. Nothing delivered is random. Every relief matches the intensity of your struggle. Ibn Arabi teaches that divine compassion is calibrated to the smallest tremor of your heart. Your weakness becomes the measure through which your help arrives. In this way, the divine responds with perfect symmetry. Every hurt is met with its exact healing. When your courage falters, an unseen strength begins to gather quietly around your core. The heart may not feel it instantly, yet it subtly prevents you from collapsing entirely. Ibn Arabi describes this phenomenon as the divine holding the servant from within. Such support does not depend on spoken prayer. It emerges from the very fabric of weakness itself. Your vulnerability becomes the vessel through which divine care flows. The softening of your inner defenses invites a mercy that had been waiting for a gap through which it could descend. When pride dissolves, the heart becomes receptive to a compassion it once resisted unknowingly. Ibn Arabi explains that the divine does not force entry. The soul must release its grip for mercy to enter deeply. Through this release, a profound transformation occurs, renewing the heart with subtle tenderness. A heart stretched beyond its limits begins to feel an unfamiliar calm rising slowly from the unseen. This calm is not accidental. It is the breath of mercy beginning to fill the cracks created by struggle. Ibn Arabi teaches that every weakness deepens the vessel of your soul, making space for greater divine presence. Though you may not comprehend the process, you feel its results. A quiet resilience forming from softness, not strength. The weight that once threatened to overwhelm you becomes surprisingly lighter, as though carried by hands you cannot see. This shift is the signature of a mercy activated by your vulnerability. Ibn Arabi reveals that divine compassion often arrives disguised as inner stability. You find yourself standing again, not because the burden has changed, but because the one supporting you has stepped closer. Even when despair seems near, the heart receives an unexpected breath of relief that interrupts the descent. That breath is the sign of divine nearness, responding to weakness before it becomes destructive. Ibn Arabi teaches that a servant is never closer to mercy than in the moment their strength falters. The divine surrounds the soul gently, ensuring that its breaking point becomes a turning point. Pain felt in silence awakens a healing that moves without sound. The deeper the hurt, the more expansive the mercy that follows it. Ibn Arabi explains that the unseen realm responds proportionally to the pain carried inside the heart. What seems like unbearable weight becomes the very reason for divine intervention. Your weakness becomes the signal calling forth a compassion designed uniquely for you. The soul that feels it cannot continue is often pushed forward, not by its own abilities, but by mercy stepping in. This movement is delicate, almost invisible, yet powerful enough to shift your entire inner landscape. Ibn Arabi teaches that divine help enters through the cracks weakness creates. From these openings, a new strength emerges, one untouched by human effort, shaped only by divine generosity. Every moment of fragility becomes an opportunity for the divine to reveal a new aspect of his gentleness. Weakness does not diminish your worth. It exposes the depth of Allah's care. Ibn Arabi describes this as the sacred intimacy between the servant and the Lord, uncovered only when the heart becomes transparent through struggle. In this transparency, the unseen mercy descends with unmatched tenderness. A believer reaching inward for strength may find nothing, yet discovers they are still standing. This quiet endurance is proof that a mercy has been activated beyond their awareness. Ibn Arabi teaches that true strength is borrowed, not manufactured. When weakness is acknowledged, the divine replaces it with a resilience shaped from light. You continue because you are being carried. The feeling of breaking often precedes the deepest experience of divine support. What appears as collapse is frequently the moment when mercy surrounds the soul most intensely. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah meets the servant most intimately at the threshold of surrender. In that surrender, walls fall and divine compassion enters fully. What you feared would destroy you becomes the reason you encounter profound nearness. The servant realizes that every moment of weakness was paired with a mercy they never saw arriving. The unseen care was present in every breath that carried them through hardship. Ibn Arabi explains that the divine never leaves the heart unsupported. He simply works in layers hidden from the mind. Weakness was never your downfall. It was the signal that awakened a mercy written for you long before your struggle began. Before a single tear gathers in the corner of your eye, the unseen realm has already prepared the relief your heart will soon need. The soul's unspoken tremor is recognized long before sorrow reaches its surface. Ibn Arabi teaches that the divine writes the cure for every ache, long before the ache is born. The rescue awaits you like a secret gift wrapped in the unseen. What unfolds later is only the unveiling of what was ordained out of pure mercy. Your heart moves through life unaware of how many storms were softened before they touched you. The help destined for you is positioned with remarkable precision, ensuring that your pain never exceeds the strength divinely placed within you. Ibn Arabi reveals that divine compassion anticipates your struggles, arranging support in ways your eyes cannot detect. The rescue exists before the wound, and the healing is older than the sorrow. This is the generosity of a Lord who prepares salvation ahead of suffering. Tears that have not yet formed still speak a language understood by the one who shaped your soul. Before grief tightens your chest, a subtle grace begins to surround it. This grace is the signature of divine planning, working beyond the limits of time. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah responds to the heart before the heart responds to itself. What appears as sudden help is in truth an ancient mercy arriving at its destined moment. Every burden that approaches you already has a path of ease attached to it, written into its very existence. The divine does not allow pain to enter your world without assigning a rescue to accompany it. Ibn Arabi describes this pairing as a hidden symmetry crafted by divine wisdom. Even when hardship seems overwhelming, the unseen support is already woven into its fabric. You are never given sorrow alone. It comes escorted by relief waiting to reveal itself. Before your tears fall, a light begins to rise in the unseen realm, gentle but steady, preparing to meet the weight of your sadness. This light is formed from compassion that understands you more deeply than you understand yourself. Ibn Arabi reminds the seeker that divine care is never reactive. It is always prearranged. The rescue stands fully formed while you are still discovering the depth of your need. Such is the mercy that surrounds every soul in silence. A believer often discovers relief in places they never thought to look. This is because the divine rescue is placed not where the mind expects, but where the soul can receive it most fully. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah distributes His help with perfect wisdom, positioning it exactly where your heart will reach in its moment of collapse. Before your tears appear, the remedy is already placed along your path, waiting for your sorrow to arrive so it may lift it. The world may appear indifferent to your pain, yet the unseen world is already in motion on your behalf. Angels move with quiet precision, guiding your heart toward relief written for you long ago. Ibn Arabi explains that nothing touches the believer except what has been measured with love. Even the tears that fall are counted and answered before they descend. Your rescue is not delayed, it is perfectly timed. Before your voice breaks, Allah has already heard the cry still trapped within your chest. The heart's trembling is understood without a single word escaping your lips. Ibn Arabi teaches that divine compassion responds to the inner states of the soul rather than its outward expressions. Your rescue is written not after your suffering, but before your suffering begins. The one who knows you best has already prepared the gentlest way back to peace. A hardship that approaches you carries within it the seed of your rescue. This rescue blossoms exactly when your heart reaches its weakest point, creating an opening for divine mercy to flood in. Ibn Arabi reveals that such openings are sacred thresholds where the soul meets the tenderness of its Lord. Before your tears fall, the means to soothe them are already arranged with unrivaled precision. You are led into hardship only to be led out more beautifully. When heaviness settles upon your heart, the unseen support begins working beneath the surface, altering outcomes, redirecting harm, and softening edges you cannot perceive. Ibn Arabi teaches that the divine intervenes in ways the mind can neither trace nor comprehend. Your rescue may begin days, months, or even years before your sorrow. It exists as a silent promise, waiting to manifest at the perfect moment. A tear delayed by even a breath is often held back by divine mercy, already strengthening the heart. The unseen comfort arrives not as a sudden miracle, but as a gradual easing that stabilizes your inner world. Ibn Arabi reminds us that Allah's aid often appears in the smallest, quietest shifts of the heart. Before your tears emerge, solace is already wrapping itself around your soul. The rescue meets you gently, without spectacle. Your struggles may appear heavy, yet the divine has already measured their limits and placed your rescue beyond every threshold of fear. The help destined for you is crafted with exactness, tailored to your heart's unique vulnerabilities. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah never allows hardship without embedding mercy within its core. What you see as suffering is cradled within a larger design of healing already prepared for you. Before your sorrow finds its way into words, Allah has already designed the comfort that will bring you back to steadiness. This comfort enters through doors you never knew existed, whispering hope into a heart that believed it was forgotten. Ibn Arabi reveals that divine love accompanies every sorrow from its beginning. The rescue is written first, and the hardship enters only afterward, ensuring you are never left without a way out. A believer stepping into difficulty steps simultaneously into divine protection. The rescue forms a circle around the heart, guarding it from collapsing under its burden. Ibn Arabi describes such protection as a mercy hidden from awareness but deeply felt in moments of despair. Before tears fall, this protection is already at work, cushioning the heart from consequences it cannot bear alone. You are carried long before you stumble. Inner sorrow often deepens before relief emerges, yet the relief is always older than the sorrow. It was written in the realm where Time does not bind divine decisions. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah's compassion precedes his tests. The rescue that awaits you is not created by your suffering, it is merely activated by your need. Before your tears fall, the path back to ease is fully formed. Emotional collapse feels imminent at times, yet you find yourself held in ways you cannot explain. That holding is the touch of the rescue written for you before hardship even approached. Ibn Arabi explains that divine mercy supports the heart from within, granting strength it did not possess a moment earlier. Before your tears fall, the hand that will lift you is already reaching toward you. Your heart may interpret pain as abandonment, but the unseen world contradicts this perception entirely. The divine rescue is arranged with extraordinary tenderness, ensuring that no wound grows beyond what can be healed. Ibn Arabi teaches that the heart is never left vulnerable without a shield crafted from divine wisdom. Before your tears fall, the shield is already raised around you, protecting what your eyes cannot see. The tears you hold back are witnessed, counted, and comforted before they ever reach your skin. Allah's knowledge of your sorrow precedes your awareness of it. Ibn Arabi reveals that the divine's response to pain is not delayed, it is predetermined. The rescue that meets you is not a reaction to your suffering, but a fulfillment of a mercy written long before your hardship. You are seen before you break. Every difficulty arrives carrying the key to its own resolution. A key placed there by the divine long before you encountered the struggle. Ibn Arabi teaches that your rescue is hidden within the trial, waiting for the moment your heart can recognize it. Before your tears fall, this key is already turning the lock that will open your way forward. What feels like the end is only the beginning of a carefully crafted deliverance. When you finally look back on the trials that once threatened to undo you, you will see the unmistakable evidence of a rescue woven through every step. Nothing was accidental. Everything was arranged by a mercy that anticipated your pain long before it appeared. Ibn Arabi teaches that the divine accompanies the servant more closely during hardship than at any other time. Before your tears fall, your salvation stands ready, written with love, delivered with precision. Before your heart even whispers its pain, Allah has already written the path that will bring you back to peace. What you fear alone is carried for you long before you notice the burden. Ibn Arabi reminds us that the one who created your heart never waits for your tears to fall. He sends mercy ahead of them. So walk gently, knowing your rescue is always closer than your sorrow, and your Lord is always nearer than your breath.